Up Live at Club Nokia is brought to you by the Nokia Astound.
All right, welcome. I am Matt. I'm here with Thierry and David Jaffe. We are at the Club Nokia across the street from the convention center.
We shut it down last night. We've been here all fucking night.
Yeah, I
awesome.
can see your 5 o'clock shadow.
No, that's like 8-day shadow.
Yeah.
It's like I'm lucky to have gotten a shower this morning to come visit you.
Excellent. So yeah, I mean, we're here to do just various stage shows and interviews. We're starting with David Jaffe. Not going to do a demo of the game, just going to kind of talk about what's going on.
Cool.
So part of it, we want to talk about Twisted Metal, and part of it, we want to talk about just kind of trends at the show.
Great.
So I figure let's start there. Like,
yeah.
How do you see the industry different now than you did a week ago? Like, what's the big thing that you guys are talking about?
I know different, but not less exciting. Because what I've been, and again, there's a lot more articulate folks certainly this morning, more articulate. But even beyond that, I mean, there are people who are a lot smarter who have said this in a better way. But the high concept that I think a lot of us in the industry have been aware for a while has just been, with all of the sort of disruptive factors that are happening in the industry, whether it's the App Store and the 99-cent games, or whether it's, I found out, I can't say which one, but I was talking to a producer, and it's like, I'm like, well, how much is the game that team is worth? It's like $65 million budget, and that's kind of they have a higher one, which is $80 million, right? So, for the last year and a half, you've been seeing that kind of just, splintering of not just sort of types of games and distribution models, but just audiences. And it's kind of like, as a developer and a designer, I've already and I really enjoy it. I think it's a really fun time to be in the industry, because even though you don't want to, unless you're making those super, quadruple A games, for $80 million, if you're going less than that, it's kind of fun that you can kind of target and zero in on your audience and kind of budget accordingly and speak directly to them. So I think all this show has really done is kind of solidify with, the Wii announcement, with the Vita having such a great price point. Also seeing, I saw some buddies who are working on iPhone games. They showed me in the bar last night, which weren't on the show floor, and just kind of having the opportunity, and then looking at something like Uncharted 3, or Gears of War 3, and just going, okay, it's just a sort of solidification and a verification of, yep, that's actually what's happening. So I don't look at it and say, God, it's a long freaking answer. I don't look at it and say, there was anything new last week. It's just it's more apparent that that's what's going on. I mean, why you guys seem surprised? Did you see something that made you go, oh my God, this is a game changer in terms of at a high level?
The big trend for me seems to be kind of hardware standardization, and how you can now put a game that will look the same on 5 platforms, with PC, 360, PS3, Vita, and Wii U.
Right.
So that to me seems like, okay, maybe developers are going to be more scared to do something that isn't going to, I mean, obviously it's different for you because you're published by Sony.
Yeah,
but any third party, they can.
I can't imagine. People always say, well, Jaffe, why don't you guys do, Xbox and PS3? And it's like, we love all those systems, and Sony has always been a great company to us, and we're loyal to Sony and stuff. But yeah, I think if you're a third-party developer or a publisher, of course. I mean, why would you not be everywhere that you can be? But when you're first party, you're not just making. You have an obligation to the game, and you also have an obligation to help promote the hardware by the decisions you make for your game. And so it's a very different kind of mindset.
Do you see this at all maybe slowing down? I mean, obviously you're not involved in these decisions, or I don't think. But
you don't fucking have any clue.
The next generation of like Sony or Microsoft hardware, you think that maybe having so much money to be made on putting one game for the current systems out right now, that it might slow down kind of the desire for third parties to want to work on the next gen?
I really don't know. I can tell you personally, I have no interest in, I'm not a graphic guy. I'm a guy who looks at graphics and goes, you have to have amazing graphics in this day and age, whether they're, sort of a indie game that has really amazing graphics, but they're not like Uncharted graphics, like say Journey, which I think is beautiful, but clearly it's not the fidelity of an Uncharted. But personally, as a designer, first and foremost, I'm kind of like, I'd rather stay on this hardware as long as the fans will allow us to, because it allows us, we know the technology, we have the budgets at least enough that we can get our arms around them. I mean, I was talking to Scott Campbell, my partner at Eat Sleep Play, and we were talking about how the first Twisted Metal cost us $850,000 to make. And this new one, I can't say what the budget is, but it's
got to be more than 10 times.
It's crazy. And the fact that, he was like, oh, we modeled Crimson Fury, which was our sort of sports car back in the day, and it took him like a day. And now, it's like, 4 to 6 weeks to go from concept to finished car in a Twisted Metal game. It's just, so yeah, when you say, do you think third parties are like, I would say from a business standpoint, I can't imagine why anybody other than maybe hardware manufacturers, and even them, would want to be ushering in the next generation of hardware. What's that?
Epic's got some money to make there, so they want it, but...
Well, yeah, no, that's true. Of course. But that's the thing that, I always had this fantasy that the publishers, like the Mafia, like in the mob movies, would come together every 5 years and sit around a big table on a pier or something.
That's illegal.
I know. But talk about, it's like, hey, what is best for us as an industry? But there's and understandably, as there should be, there's so much competition to be the next big thing that I don't think we have... I think we as a whole, as an industry, both in terms of the industry fans and people who work in the industry, I think we suffer for it because, the guys that go raise the bar graphically, it's like, they get all the awards and accolades and blah, blah, blah this time. And next time it's someone else, but you're not necessarily making the games better. You're just basically upping the visuals, and the costs are going up, and you're getting less games made because the games are so expensive. The one trend I will tell you, people have said there are fewer games at this show. And people, it doesn't mean there are fewer games in other spaces like free to play and iPhone and things like that, but certainly this show has fewer games, and I think it's a no-brainer to say it's a direct result of the fact that they're getting a lot more expensive to make, and publishers don't have the money to take as many chances. And I do think that is a direct result of continually raising the visual bar. And I know your fans are probably like, dude, you're a fucking idiot, man. I want great I don't know why you guys talk like Jersey bouncers, but I get that as a gamer, but at the same time, if I had to make a choice, I would rather say, maybe today's graphics are 85% as good. I would rather Uncharted 3 look 85% as good as it does and lose 15% of its amazing visuals if it meant that there were 30 more games on the show floor. And I'm not blaming Uncharted, I'm just saying that it represents the bar at the highest you can get it right now in this industry in terms of graphic, and sort of technological execution. If it meant there were 30 more games out there on the show floor because the bar had been raised, but it had been raised, and I hate to use this because I'm going to get nailed for saying this, but I'm going to say it, and I know this, but if it had been raised more responsibly, and that's what I mean, like the Mafia heads coming together and saying, yes, we want to push technology, yes, we want to push graphics.
So the Mafia is the responsible version here?
Well, again, this whole conversation is after, I wish I could paint it like it was some awesome Hangover 2 debauchery night at a strip club. It was a strip club. We got there, they were just closing. It was so nothing. It's just that I'm old now and I drank one beer with a headache and what am I talking about? I don't even fucking know. Point being is I'm not trying to say the Mafia is good. I'm trying to say, I'm not saying they're bad, by the way, Bruno or whoever is out there.
They don't exist.
They don't exist. Or the Yakuza or any of that. I'm just saying that, that would be, for me, I'd rather see more games, even if it meant the graphics weren't as stunning because it means we can take more chances. But we are seeing that on other devices like Vita and like the iPhone and things like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, it could be kind of a new standard if so in your ideal world, would you go 10 more years on this hardware if you could?
No, I think I love what people are talking about where they talk, everybody's talking about it in such a way it was like virtual reality back in the 90s. It's so buzzwordy that I should just shut up at this point. But, the fantasy that gets painted is sort of the cloud. Is that Chad back there? That's not Chad, is it? That guy looks like Chad, like a silhouette. No. It's not. Now you're moving, I see it's not, but I'm like, he's like a Sony producer, and you guys can't see this. Is this supposed to be a serious show?
No, we're
okay,
good.
Thank God.
Just go with it.
Okay, so he's our Sony producer, and he's got the exact same kind of figure as this dude. But this guy's just in silhouette. So I just see it, and I'm like, dude, I'm talking Sony stuff, and he's always there, and it's creepy. No. So everybody's about the cloud, right? Everybody's talking about and I love that picture that gets painted, which is, eventually there really is no one hardware. It really is more like, Sony would have its almost like channel in the cloud, and they would have huge budget, games, and they would have small budget games, and you can subscribe to that, or you can subscribe to Microsoft's, and then it really does become, it's becoming what it is now, but it's across all these different hardware devices.
Like the HBO model.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what I hear a lot of people talking about this week when we're talking about sort of what's in the future. So to me, I really, when you say 10 years, that's really what I want to see happen. Everybody's always made fun of me because I'm like one system Jaffe, and it's like, you're an idiot, But I love that idea. I don't want people who didn't fork over $3.99 not to get to play our game, and I don't want, I like, it'd be great for everybody who's into Twisted Metal. for example, or God of War, or whatever we're working on next, to go, oh, I have access to it. If I don't have to go out and buy a separate system just to play it. But who knows?
Well, so then Twisted Metal on Vita, right?
They haven't asked us. I think right now, I mean, people have been asking that all week, and I think it would be a fun fit. But to be honest, I mean, every game we've worked on, we've been able to read the tea leaves better on do we have a hit or not. And with Twisted Metal, it's been really, really hard because we know we have a huge fan base that loved the earlier Twisted Metals. They seem to be loving what they're playing on this one. But it's a game that we're super proud of. And it's the best Twisted Metal we've ever made. But what we don't know is when we go out, does it have a home like it used to have a home? And so I don't think any of us are being presumptuous and saying, oh yeah, this is the start of we're going to make 1 and 2 and a Vita version and a Facebook version. We have no clue. This could go out and it could be the last Twisted Metal we ever make, or it could go out and begin the start of a franchise. But unlike a lot of other games you make in this industry where you kind of know by now, we really don't know. We don't have any clue yet. I think E3 is going to be a good thing because all of our sales guys met with the retailers. And from what I heard last night at the bar, it's been really, really, really positive in terms of their response and what they're going to order and how many they're going to sell. But Twisted, it's God, I give long answers. I should shut up. You have an editor, right, for this?
It's Dave.
Somebody's going to edit this? God, I hope so.
All right. So I know you can't talk budget specifics, but kind of from your perspective, if hypothetically down the line there was a Vita version of this exact game, not something new.
Okay.
Would that be how affordable would that be to make? Would you think it would be like half the budget of the current game?
Well, I mean, we don't have a Vita in the office. We haven't gotten our hands on it in terms of as developers. So we haven't gotten our programmers looking into sort of how easy it would be to port and all that stuff. But I mean, certainly because Twisted Metal is a new game in the sense that we weren't building off a lot of existing technology. We didn't have a previous game that was just like it with a little bit of So a lot of our money on this title really did go to figuring out what the game was, level building, gameplay mechanics, so even if you just strip that away and it's a direct technological port, I would imagine it's more than 50% savings. I think you're probably, if this budget, which it's not, let's say it was $5 million, I would imagine the Vita version would probably, this is just a guess, I'm just totally pulling a figure out of my ass based on the very little stuff that I know. I'd say that you probably do it for $2 million.
Okay.
But I'm just guessing. I don't know.
So say hypothetically Sony shows up in a week and they're like, here's a contract, we want this to happen. Would you want to work on that at Eat Sleep Play, or do you think you'd want to bring in another team?
Hypothetically, I mean, this is one of those tricky parts where I'm going to be on camera, and if I say something that's responsible, I'm going to feel like I did the right responsible thing. And if I say,
still it's the truth.
Yeah, because it benefits me and you. Kumbaya. But I'm not going to lie to you, so let me think. It's now that I've even said this, it's like, what's Jaffe? Okay, look. Here's what I'll say. Okay. As a designer, Twisted Metal has been a absolutely wonderful blast to work on, and we're proud of it and excited for it. I'm kind of creatively excited about doing something different now, but at the same time we have a responsibility to a very talented team. We have a loyalty to a great company, which is Sony. And so if they came to us and said, hey, we think, I mean, again, you have to be honored by it first. It's not like we're, it's not like we're BioWare, well, they're owned by EA now, but it's not like we're, I don't know, the Jason and Vince guys who probably have the pick, So I mean, I'm not saying we're not, I'm just saying that we haven't even put our first game out yet, right? So so we'd be grateful first off.
Well, didn't you technically do Twisted Metal Head On?
No, I didn't. The team did. I was doing God of War while they were doing that.
Okay.
But my point to all God, shut up, Jaffe. You talk too much. My point to all this is that on one hand, yes, we have a very talented team that we're responsible for, and if Sony, which is a company that we love, came to us and offered us work, of course we'd be idiots. But it would depend on how long the duration was, because personally, I have to get back to, just speaking for myself, I have to get back now. Twisted Metal and Calling All Cars were so mechanics driven, which I loved. I was at that point in I'm not ignoring you, by the way.
No worries.
I have a hangover and my head works better this way than this way. And this is physically painful for me to do this. But those were such mechanic driven games, and I was so at that point where I really wanted to kind of use those muscles. And now I'm getting to a point where I really do want to do something that really is more story-based again and more character-based again, and really sort of speaks from that part of me. And so I don't think I would want to give 2 years of my life to, working right now on another title like that at the moment.
Okay, I got one random question for you.
Yeah.
Donald Mustard in
Yep.
an EGM interview
Yep.
a few months ago mentioned in that, it didn't get a lot of attention, but he said something about, and I think he name dropped you, being offered the director seat for God of War 3.
Yes.
What I didn't understand from that is it didn't seem like that was your call at that point, but he seemed to think that you were the one who kind of offered that to him.
Oh, no. What happened was I had played Advent Rising, and we were already in production with Corey on. And the only thing I was a little confused on, I thought it was God of War 2 we were offering him.
Okay.
But it was one of the two. The reason I don't think it was God of War 3 was Corey was actually slated to direct God of War 3, and he went off.
Initially, right.
And so I'm like, there's no, unless Corey had already gone off and we hadn't picked Stig yet, and maybe that was what was happening. But I think this was probably going from 1 to 2. But regardless, yes, he was offered either 2 or 3, and I had played Advent Rising, and even though clearly, they'll admit it was rough around the edges, there were some really neat things about that game, especially sort of in-game storytelling, because God of War, especially with 1 and 2 and 3, it was really kind of like, basically Corey came on eventually and was like, he and I were talking about Max Payne 2 a lot and how they told a lot of their story in gameplay, and then Advent Rising had done a lot of that too. And so I went out to Utah, met with Donald, we had dinner, and I was like really hopeful that he would say yes, and but no, it was him who said no. So it wasn't like I wanted him and Sony said no. It was I wanted to continue the conversation, but he eventually was like, I got to do this other thing right now.
Were there any other external people that was offered to?
I know we looked outside of games, I think. I don't remember any specific name. No one that anybody. I don't think it never got further than that meeting with Donald with anyone else. I know I was kind of like looking at movies and going, I wonder if anyone's directed a movie that has a really cool essence that might want to come in and direct a game, or I was looking at other video games. I want to say maybe PsyOps was out around the same time, and I was like, that kind of has a neat, but ultimately by the time Donald said no, and this has been a while now, I think Corey began to come into focus for us because we looked at him as the lead animator. And it took a lot, and I think we had begun having discussions sort of as just geek designer fans, Corey and myself, and it started to come into focus of, wow, he really gets this on a level that has nothing to do with animation, but gameplay and storytelling and mechanics, and so that kind of superseded all the other options.
Okay, cool. And then final 2 questions we're asking everybody. What's the best thing you've seen here?
Yep.
And what's the game that you think more people should be paying attention to that they're not?
Well, when you have a game at the show, that's the best because it means you're working and people are interested and you have a publisher that cares enough to send you to E3 with your game. So that's the most important news. The bad news about it is when you do have a chance to leave your booth and you're not promoting your game, which you're also always grateful for, I'd rather be here with you guys talking to people about our game than at the show playing other people's games because it lets people know what we're doing. But the point being is when you're not doing all that stuff, you're at your booth because it's like a free play test. You don't want to leave. So long answer again, Jaffe, is that I've walked around, but I haven't really been able to really take in the show as a fan.
So nothing is really just
like at night you haven't been online, like looking
yeah,
around
well,
and stuff?
I've tried. I'm going to next week or this weekend. I'm like, okay, I'm going to E3 this weekend on the internet, right? But okay, I hear Batman is amazing. Uncharted 3 made me want to buy a 3D TV. Up until I saw that at the Sony press conference, I was like, I don't care about 3D, and I was like, wow, that was pretty freaking cool. Zelda, I really like. I was walking through the Nintendo booth briefly, and I know a lot of people like the graphics aren't. Dude, I remember that Geek Out press conference when they showed the adult Zelda on GameCube, and this is finally freaking what. I know there was the one with the wolf the last Zelda. Yeah, it wasn't my cup of tea, but I love Zelda and Link and the whole world, and so I really love just seeing kind of an HD next-gen Zelda. And then I haven't seen it because I don't want to see it because I so love Darksiders. It was one of my favorite games of the last 5 years. And so I'm staying away from THQ because it's the only game as a designer that I've played in the last 5 years, maybe that in Flower, that I've been able to just be a gamer playing it. And so I actually don't want to have anything ruined when I sit down and play Darksiders 2.
All right, we got about 10 seconds left. Any underdogs, things people haven't been paying attention to?
I saw this kind of cool game. I think it was called like, it was kind of like tower defense, real time, like Orcs Must Die or something.
Oh, yeah, from Robot.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool, but I haven't seen a lot. So there's this little Battlefield 3. I think they got a shot. They're tough and rough and tumble, scrum. Yeah, whatever. Fuck off. All right.
And with that,
thank you guys.
On to the next one. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Thanks, man.
No worries.